Test. Just checking for audio. 1, 2. All good. Video seems good too. Right. Let's see here. All right. Welcome this evening. Let's get going with the readings as usual. This read-along is somewhat self-explanatory. It's Leftist Read-Along, where we read leftist articles and do some analysis on them, share some opinions, and hopefully grow together and learn more from each other and from these articles. I'm going to take my time with this. There's no rush, as in the bulletin in the bottom. No ads here, just a leftist read-along. Please share. Most of the articles will be from Liberation News, which is a psl.org news article. Here, if you're interested in the description box is the link to Liberation News, and through there you can either read along the articles or donate to Liberation News. As you are all aware, that is it's an organization that is profit-free. It's a leftist org, believes in socialist issues, Marxist issues, and keeping up the good fight to push these issues to the forefront for people to understand and be more involved, so that they're not blinded by the propagandist machines in capitalism and in the Western Empire. Okay, so let's move along here. Let's see. Let me refresh this real quick. See if there's any new articles. All right, so we have not much actually since last week. It's been a light week, which means I'll probably release a lot more during this week. So maybe I'll split this up, and if this one's short tonight, I'll maybe read a different article from a different leftist website or organization, and then maybe pick up some more articles throughout the week if possible. But usually this stream is on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. All right, let's move along. First article of the night. Who are the Iraqi militias, U.S. forces? Who are the Iraqi militias U.S. forces are attacking, and are they really proxies of Iran? By Jasper Sah, February 13th. It's about a 5-minute read. The photo description here is Iraqi armed forces and the Popular Mobilization Forces of Iraqi celebrate victory against ISIS in Saladin Governorate. Credit Wikimedia Commons. All right. Since the beginning of Israel's genocide in Gaza, U.S. forces have carried out multiple strikes in Baghdad and western Iraq, even killing top military commanders within the country's Popular Mobilization Forces. Iraq's Hashd al-Shaabi, or Popular Mobilization Forces in English, have made headlines the world over in recent months, especially as U.S. forces in the region have continually escalated attacks on targets associated with the PMF. Western media would have readers uncritically believe the claims that the PMF is an Iranian proxy, much the same as a characterization of Lebanon's Hezbollah or Yemen's Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis. But who are the PMF in reality? Who are the PMF in reality? An organic Iraqi resistance movement. The PMF, its origins in the resistance to U.S. occupation following the 2003 invasion of Iraq, which toppled the central government and routed the Iraqi army. It was and rooted the Iraqi army. It was this movement which was able to deal severe blows to the occupation forces and were essential in the eventual drawdown of U.S. presence in Iraq. The forces that would become the PMF learned many lessons in the fight against the U.S. occupation. Most importantly, how to effectively fight an enemy equipped with far superior firepower. How to effectively fight an enemy equipped with far superior firepower. Oppression and occupation will always inspire resistance. During the Iraq War, Western media and U.S. military spokespeople attacked the resistance forces as inspired by al-Qaeda, loyalty to Saddam Hussein, or radical Islam, to name but a few. But the reality in the Iraqi people's resistance against imperialism was developed over 3 decades of war, sanctions, and occupation at the hands of the U.S. and coalition forces. Over the last 15 years, the PMF has become an umbrella term for any of the armed groups that formed to battle the so-called Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS, alternately known as Daesh in Arabic. Dozens of factions and tens of divisions, brigades, and other formations presenting the wide, multi-ethnic, and multi-confessional nature of Iraq made up the PMF. The Iraqi armed forces were not equipped to defend the country against ISIS, and by 2014, the group had captured huge swaths of northern Iraq, including the major northern city of Mosul. During this period, ISIS fighters targeted ethnic and religious minorities, notably the Yazidi people, in the most brutal ways, including through mass murder, sexual slavery, and other acts that constitute genocide. In 2017, independent journalist Rania Khalek, embedded with Yazidi units of the PMF in Sinjar province in northern Iraq. Khalek described how U.S.-backed Iraqi and Kurdish forces essentially retreated from many of these areas and ISIS advanced, taking their weapons with them and leaving countless civilians to face the ISIS fighters alone. This betrayal inspired hundreds of Yazidi fighters to turn to the PMF to defend their land and loved ones. The Yazidi story is one of hundreds that define the history of the PMF over the last 20 years of occupation and resistance. Sectarianism, imperialist divide and conquer strategy. Characterizing the PMF as an Iranian proxy ignores and negates the deep and organic history of resistance on the part of the Iraqi people. To characterize the PMF as solely Shia organization is factually untrue. For one, Iraq is Shia majority, and there are multiple different ideological tendencies and political formations among Iraqi Shia. Additionally, Sunnis, Christians, as well as ethnic minorities such as Yazidis, Shabakis, Turkmen, and others are also represented in PMF units. What unites these disparate forces is a commitment to resistance against imperialism and sectarianism. Sectarianism has long been used by imperialists to divide and conquer the Middle East, from British and French imperialists drawing up the borders of the modern Middle East as part of Sykes-Picot Agreement to Lebanon's imposed confessional parliamentary system to Bush-era schemes to partition Iraq into 3 countries along the lines of Sunni, Shia, and Kurdish regions. Ethnic and religious infighting has always been a key tool of imperialist domination. And despite its support of Saddam Hussein in the 1980s, in the immediate lead-up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the U.S. government cynically invoked the language of human rights to portray his government as one of the Sunni Arab minorities, silencing and repressing other religious and ethnic groups, and drum up support for war. Then, after toppling Saddam Ba'athist's government, the narrative eventually shifted to one of Iran-backed militias, or even proxies, capturing Iraq. It is clear that the U.S. government has never cared about religious or ethnic minorities in the region, but only uses them as pawns in its imperialist chessboard. And while the implication is that Iran is controlling Shia forces across the region and that it is an existential threat to Sunnis and other sects in the region, the actual track record of Iran in this regard could not be more opposite. Iran's actual role. Excuse me, I gotta take this off. Nice and warm in here today. It's a quick pause. All right. On January 2nd of 2020, the U.S. military assassinated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, a leader in one of the most important PMF-affiliated groups, the Kataib Hezbollah, with an airstrike in Baghdad. Soleimani, a general in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps elite Quds forces, spent the last 2 decades organizing what is now known as the Resistance Axis, a network of autonomous, locally organized military actors united around resistance to U.S. imperialism and Zionism in the region. Iran provides varying levels of support to groups with the Resistance Axis, advisors and trainers, weapons and ammo, and other such support, but does not maintain any operational command of these forces. From the Palestinian resistance and Hezbollah to Ansar Allah and the PMF, Iran has consistently backed the creation of indigenous resistance capacity and coordination across the region. This is most clearly demonstrated in the ingenuity of the Palestinian resistance forces, which have developed the capacity to produce their own missiles and weapons under the strictest conditions of siege in Gaza. Iran is not looking to create dependence, but understands its interests are aligned with the interests of organic anti-imperialist and anti-Zionist movements across the region. To U.S. imperialists, for whom everything is a transaction, it is near impossible to imagine that resistance forces in Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq will put themselves at risk defending the Palestinian people without getting orders and funding from Tehran. U.S. imperialist is a real terrorist. Let me repeat that headline for this paragraph. U.S. imperialist, U.S. empire is the real terrorist. Far from these forces representing a network of terrorist organizations, it is the U.S. empire that is the real terrorist state in the region. Between funding and facilitating Israeli settler colonialism and genocide in Palestine, the brutal sanctions regime levied against countless countries, covert funding for extremely reactionary elements from the Afghan Mujahideen to Lebanese Christian fascists, and the campaigns of mass murder against the people of Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, and Libya, the U.S. government has stoked sectarianism, enforced neocolonial underdevelopment, and made sure to smear and attack any resistance to these imperialist designs as terrorists. Read that last sentence again, because it's pretty solid. Between funding and facilitating Israeli settler colonialism and genocide in Palestine, the brutal sanctions regime levied against countless countries, covert funding for extremely reactionary elements from the Afghan Mujahideen to Lebanese Christian fascists, and the campaigns of mass murder against the people of Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, and Libya, the U.S. government has stoked sectarianism, enforced neocolonial underdevelopment, and made sure to smear and attack any resistance to these imperialist designs as terrorists. So this goes back to classic quote, one group's terrorist is another group's liberator, you might say. Probably not quoting it correctly or precisely. But yeah, a lot of people are smearing, for example, Hamas as a terrorist group, right? You know, a group that was funded by Israel and propped up by Israel because Israel didn't like Palestinians' leftist groups. So they propped up Hamas. And now Hamas in power has evolved and has become radicalized because of the occupation, because of the apartheid state system of Israel upon Palestine, upon Gaza. So they're Israel sees them as terrorists. America smears all of the people of Hamas as terrorists, but Palestinians see them as liberators. Why? Because they're fighting for the cause and they're exposing the true colors of what Israel really is. Most people before October 7th didn't realize or really understand how Israel controls the Middle East, puts pressure on the Middle East through Palestine, through Gaza, how it's really just another tentacle or another arm of U.S. imperialism, Western imperialism to control the region or to stabilize the region. to pretty much just use their resources, right? To exploit the land, to exploit the people. And for the U.S., it's worth sending a few $1 billion to Israel every year just to keep the land stabilized. This is historically what the United States empire has always done. It has lobbied for agents in other nations to give America the best deals possible, whether it's in oil or refineries or other kinds of minerals. And if the deals don't work as America likes it, America considers it a threat, a national threat to them, and goes in and pays certain agents, certain politicians that are easily bought with American money, pays them to orchestrate coups, to destabilize the country, to sow propagandist messaging within the ranks, to maybe have a military coup or sieges, But this is just, if you were to read the history books, if you read history books about America and how it's conducted as capitalist free market, you'd understand that there's nothing free about it, that it has a lot to do with manipulation and sanctions and embargoes and CIA orchestrated coups, FBI getting involved in the war where they can. So the same here. With the Iraqi militias, they're fighting on their land for their country, for their values, and that's something that you can't take away from people when they're invaded. America can't go and invade other countries, impose their beliefs, and say that they're trying to spread democracy or spread justice. That's not what they're doing. If America wanted to really spread democracy and justice, they would donate billions of dollars for schools and for education and for mutual aid out there. Not a bunch of bombs, not carpet bomb half of the not carpet bomb half of the nation or the country. The same here. America would instead be better off investing in programs here at home in the States to actually educate people. But that's not what it's about. It's about capitalism, and the best way, the greedy capitalist up top, the elitist, the best way to control people is to control the messaging and to keep people ignorant. That's the straight up truth. Just keep people ignorant and manipulate them and turn the working class against each other. We have more in common with the militia, the Iraqi militia people, than with a billionaire. Trust me. Billionaires don't fight for justice. They don't fight for the improvement of the people. They fight for themselves. And if you think they have no issue wasting a few American lives as easily as they do some foreign lives, you're dead wrong, because they've done it multiple times and they've killed very important people here in America. For example, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, all of their murders tied to FBI. So some even say JFK is tied to the FBI, his murder. So trust me, if they have no issues murdering important people, they aren't going to blink once over someone like me or someone like you out there just trying to earn a living wage and live a peaceful life, right? So let's go a little bit over these articles here. So what's really interesting about this organic Iraqi resistance, if Iran is funding autonomous groups, I mean, that's really genius, actually, that you can fund groups that already have a structure, already have a goal in mind. They all have the same goal, which is to resist imperialism. So they're all united within a common goal, and and there's multiple heads. So you can't just take one person down and think that, oh, it's over. We took this big shot down, and we're going to be able to to defeat the Iraqi resistance, right? No, you take one head down. He's now a martyr for the new leaderships to rise up in those movement sections. It's like Vietnam, right? Uh, North Vietnam, the people there didn't want to be invaded. They didn't ask for it, and they decided to stand up for something they believed in. They believed in their culture and their ideologies, and they supported it. And they decided to fight to the very last man until it became political suicide to support the Vietnam War, which is why it ended. And I think that's pretty much what's happening with Israel and Palestine and Gaza. Pretty soon, the momentum shifting, the ideas out there, the support for Israel is shifting more to a humanitarian support of human life in general, as to like, how do you justify or make it even excusable for? There is no reasonable way to justify the murder, the bombing of innocent women and children, day after day after day for more than 130 days now. Over 10,000 children dead in Gaza, and thousands of more permanently injured mentally and physically, limbs blown off, mental trauma for the rest of their lives. You think they're going to grow up with any peaceful appreciation for Israel or for Jews or for Zionism, especially for Zionism, the belief that Israel should practically just take over the whole region? No, they're going to grow up to be the next Hamas supporters, the next revolutionaries, the next Iraqi resistance movement recruits, just as much as anyone else in the Middle East that doesn't like what's happening in Palestine, just as much as everybody else around the world that doesn't like what's happening in Palestine. A lot of people are going to speak or act with their wallet. A lot of people are going to protest. A lot of people are going to get into politics. And this is not a generation that can be easily propagandized anymore. The population in America is quickly losing trust in the government and its propagandist machines, which is the big media networks. A lot of people are going into websites, YouTubes, following independent journalists, and trusting more in people that actually show evidence. The time of just being a talking head on a major news network is over. You can't just speak and not show evidence. The time of debating without evidence is ending too. It is so easy now to debate or to have a journalistic report be delivered with factual evidence right away in real time, which a lot of independent journalists are doing. And it's really exposing how weak the support of the propaganda machines really are when they try to deliver their messages across the spectrum nowadays, when it comes to from far right to far left parties or party supporters. Even on the right, I would say a lot of people on the right are waking up and they're realizing that the government is just not it's just not working for the working class person. And some are leaving the right entirely, or leaving parties, as much as in the left. The Republicans and Democrats are bleeding. They're literally bleeding supporters. And some people are just always going to be blind supporters, right? Some people are always going to be Trump 2024. Some people are always going to be 4 more years for Biden, regardless of how monstrous these people have been and how easily you can access information on how monstrous it's been nowadays. But there's a huge shift, and what we have to be careful about during the shifts is having false icons rise up. When I talk about false icons, I'm talking about the same people that come again saying that they're bringing something new, but they're just really sheep herding us back into the 2-party system, right? I'm talking about people like Trump, talking about people like Biden. I'm talking about people like Bernie and the squad, unfortunately, that will say things like Biden has done a good job, or will say that lesser evil is voting is important, like that's ever gotten us anywhere good. We've just been regressing decade after decade voting for these two parties. There's no reason you should trust anybody in any of those parties or anybody that still entertains those two parties. It's a huge red flag when you have people that you consider your allies tell you that you should support any kind of candidate running within those two parties. Uh, you should be supporting independents that support the issues that you care about, that push on those issues, and are willing to speak truth to power and expose the lies of the major news networks, the propagandist lies of both the Democratic and Republican parties that just sow division between the working class instead of pointing at the elitists that actually rake in all the profits for all the warmongering that's going on around the world. Okay. So let's see here. Going on to sectarianism, imperialist divide and conquer strategy. Mm-hmm. I mean, this paragraph was pretty self-explanatory here about how sectarianism works. Let's read this last sentence here. Well, the implication here is that Iran is controlling Shia forces across the region and that this is an existential threat to the Sunnis and other sects in the region. The actual track record of Iran in that regard could not be more opposite, right? So it's talking about sectarian again. It's the divide and conquer strategy, because what it does is it tries to divide people in the Middle East the way it tries to divide people here in America, where we have two duopoly parties that are always arguing against each other and always turning the working class against each other. A quick example of that, for example, is to me the most important, huge example about that right now is both political parties making immigration a big deal for the elections, right? Talking about, oh, we're trying to fund better immigration laws, and it's all smokescreen. Let's put it this way: if you wanted less immigration into America, which they don't, because both parties depend. The capitalist system depends on cheap labor, which means more immigration. And when immigration gets out of control, especially undocumented immigration, people migrating without documents, once there's too many of them here, America has no other choice. And realistically, they can't deport everybody. It doesn't matter how authoritarian they get and how many people they try to hire. It's economically unrealistic to invest so much money into trying to deport tens of millions of people. So what do they do when the bucket overflows with undocumented people? Well, if the economy is right and the stars align, well, they provide amnesty. They say it's better to give all these undocumented immigrants amnesty, and that way they're in the books legally, and we can tax them properly, and they can work properly, and they just become part of the labor force, right? And the truth is, elitists love it. They love immigrants because immigrants come to America with something to prove. They're the hardest workers. They'll work for less, and then both parties will say that they're taking your jobs, like they actually care about that, and they don't. They care more about making a profit so that their stock market funds can grow higher, so that their market caps can be bigger, so that their investors can keep investing, right? So that's the divide. They blame immigrants for everything. They blame poor people on welfare for everything. Like one person getting a few $100 every year or every month is really comparable to Jeff Bezos making billions of dollars every year and not paying his taxes, and instead wasting the money on like cruise spaceships, right? Ridiculous stuff that isn't really going to help anybody down here. Let's just think about it. He's going to charge over $300 to $500,000 for people to go on a flight around the orbit. Like, who's going to be able to afford that? People can't even afford a house nowadays, which costs just as much. So this is the smoke screen, right? The smoke and mirrors that capitalist duopoly does. They blame immigrants. They blame poor people. They blame that one immigrant that went out of control and shot a bunch of people. Like, if we don't have mass shootings here by regular people all the time. And then they say, well, we need to send billions to the border to fix the border. It's a smokescreen. That's just their way of saying we tried doing something, but we just can't fix it. No, the real way to actually fix immigration is for America to stop destabilizing all these countries, stop destabilizing the Middle East, stop destabilizing South America, stop with the sanctions, stop with the interventions, right? And then if you don't believe something like Venezuela's socialism is going to work out, let it fall on its own. Why are you destabilizing it more, right? You want to prove that America and the free market and capitalism works, then why do you have to go in and intervene so much in other systems, right? The other part to that is they don't want to, or they can't stop the interventions, because then the profits drop as well, right? If immigrants stop coming, profits drop. If interventions stop and countries like Venezuela rise up by their own bootstraps, then profits will drop in America, right? So it's really, it just shows how capitalism is in this evil, disgusting cycle that just creates more greed and just siphons more money to the 1%, instead of spreading it and redistributing it properly around the working class. Don't forget that every time we send billions overseas for wars, we're just printing that money. So the government, the politicians could easily just print that money for American workers to create jobs, to fix the infrastructure, but they don't. And neither party ever addresses that, right? Neither party ever says that interventions is the issues. Neither party ever says that we don't need to send money abroad to fix things here. So why would you be voting for either of those parties that are just constantly lying to you and conning you and telling you that they're the lesser evil? It's nonsense. Stop it. Stop wasting your time and energy with them. Instead, support parties and independent parties that actually are willing to teach people and tell people the truth, and willing to organize with people to demand actual justice and to demand actual programs that will uplift the working class here. As they say, as is said many times, you have way more in common with the poor man on the streets, and you're closer to being that poor man than you'll ever be closer to being a billionaire. Just because one or two people or minorities become billionaires, and they say, see, he did it, everyone else can do it. Well, if everyone else could do it, then being a billionaire would be pointless, right? Everybody would be a billionaire, and it would be $1 billion wouldn't mean anything. They're never going to say there shouldn't be any billionaires on the earth, because that means they have excess money that they don't need. Instead, we should redistribute the sources to the rest of the people in the world that need it. They'll never say stuff like that. Why? Because they love power. Anyways, that's my rant. I'm going long on this and speaking my mind, because there's only seems to be a couple articles today. So Iran's actual role, their role is to fund and support these Iraqi militias. And of course, the U.S. empire is a real terrorist. Like I said, as I explained earlier, they're the real terrorists because they use branches like the Pentagon, the FBI, and the CIA to fund destabilization of other nations, right? They destabilize other countries for their benefit, right? They use other people to destabilize countries, to orchestrate coups. And this is not something made up. It's written in the history books. All you have to do is look it up. Look up American coups around the world, and you're going to see that there's a lot of them all over South America, all over the place. And my point back to that is, okay, so you say survival of the fittest or whatever. Well, I thought you believed in a free market and then you believed in justice, right? So why is the free market, is it really free if it's actually imposing authoritarian actions around the world? Not really. And it's not really justice either when it supports and sends billions of dollars to bomb innocent people, as it's doing in Gaza right now, as it's doing in Ukraine right now. Ukraine is literally running out of men to go into war. And America or Ukraine thinks that by sending billions of dollars worth of drone gear and more military tanks, that's going to make a difference. Nah, that war in Ukraine is over. Putin, Russia, they already have the ground that they wanted to have, and they're defending that ground now. And it's just a matter of time before Ukraine decides to concede, really. So I'm not going to get too much into Ukraine because that's not what this article is about. And I'm not a professional on it, but I do suggest if people want to learn about Ukraine, if you haven't learned anything yet, or if you're new to the issue, just watch Ukraine on Fire, great documentary by Oliver Stone. That'll catch you up pretty much, and you'll understand why there's a war over there. All right, let's see here. Let's go. Next article here. So if I click latest, who are the Iraqi militia? So I read these two for you. Stop sending money to Ukraine. We read that last week. Netanyahu rejects truce, promised worst massacre yet in Rafah. Yep, read all that for you last week. So I guess this is the one. This is the last one for today. And let's see what it says here. Argentina is not for sale. We have a little T here. All right. Argentina is not for sale. Argentinians right against Milei's neoliberal plunder. All right, this one's going to be good. Written by Eduardo Rodriguez. About a 3-minute read. Photo, President of Argentina, Javier Milei, screaming like a wild goose on fire. Let's see. On January 24th, 1.5 million Argentinians took to the streets in a general strike organized by the General Confederation of Labor, Argentina's two Workers' Central Federations, CTA de los Trabajadores and CTA Autónoma, popular organizations, human rights organizations, political parties, and workers from nearly every industry. The mobilizations were a response to two pieces of legislation presented by President Javier Milei's administration last December, the Decree of Necessity and Urgency and the Omnibus Law. If implemented, both policies would not only be disastrous for Argentina's working class, but they could open the door to other far-right governments in the region replicating such measures and imposing their own brand of hyper-neoliberal shock therapy. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like history repeating itself. All right, Milei, the new face of far-right populism in Latin America. Like all far-right populists, Milei, a self-identified libertarian, admirer of Milton Friedman, and an economist himself, came to power on a platform of brash, inflammatory rhetoric, cultural war talking points, and vague anti-government policies. His theatrics during the campaign included brandishing a chainsaw at public appearances to show his commitment to cut down the country's political caste. The chainsaw is also an apt symbol for a candidate that has declared environmentalism as part of a post-Marxist agenda and even caught the attention of the Republican Party. Rhetoric notwithstanding, since taking office on December 10, 2023, Milei has followed the far-right neoliberal handbook to a T. Abroad, Milei has cozied up to the imperial powers, isolated Argentina from all progressive governments, and courted the favor of international finance. During his short stint in office, Milei has severed diplomatic relations with Venezuela and Cuba, resumed talks with the International Monetary Fund, declined to join the BRICS, and publicly attacked China. More recently, Milei visited Israel during the apartheid state's ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people and announced plans to move Argentina's embassy to Jerusalem. At home, Milei has all but declared war on the working class, with sweeping legislation that not only seeks to wither the power of the legislative branch, but also dismantles workers' rights, deregulates nearly every industry, imposes austerity measures, and opens up the country to private plunder. I need to read that last line because that line is important. At home, Milei has all but declared war on the working class, with sweeping legislation that not only seeks to wither the power of the legislative branch, but also dismantles workers' rights, deregulates nearly every industry, imposes austerity measures, and opens up the country to private plunder. Class war codified into law. The two pieces of legislation that brought millions of Argentinians to the streets are the Decree of Necessity and Urgency and the Omnibus Law. Laughably titled Guidelines and Starting Points for the Freedom of Argentinians, together these two pieces of legislation are a veritable wish list of neoliberal policy and are prime examples of ruling class lawfare. Announced just 10 days after Milei took office, the DNU is a legislative measure that the executive can use to circumvent Congress and push through legislative quickly and without oversight. The nearly 400 articles included in the decree would overturn or modify dozens of pieces of legislation, with the aim of deregulating major sectors of the economy from energy and finance to healthcare and communications. The DNU also promotes privatization of state companies, including the National Bank, and makes foreign investment, into other words, foreign plunder, in the country easier. Most notably, it also attacks basic workers' rights like the right to strike. The Omnibus Law, in essence, expands the reach of Milei's deregulatory policies to include everything from changes to the penal code and pension plans to education and gender policies. Some of the proposed policy changes include stiffer sentences for protesters, privatization of the National Energy Company, major cuts to both the cultural and education sectors, rolling back of several environmental protection laws, and sweeping forum reforms to the electoral system. But the severity of these attacks has only been matched by the wide resistance of the Argentinian people and their steadfast commitment to preserve their rights. A victory for the people. After the general strike and days of massive mobilization last week, the Argentinian courts voted to suspend Milei's omnibus bill, in a major defeat that came while the president was in Israel showing his support for a genocidal regime. The people demonstrated their power by putting pressure on their government to reject the unpopular bill. It's a huge victory not only for the Argentinian working class, but for all the working people around the world. Though the bill is only suspended and can thus be brought to appeal for a later approval, the fact that courts ruled in favor of the workers is a testament to popular power and what a well-organized working class can achieve when it mobilizes against ruling class aggression. Woo! So I guess Milei's had a rough few weeks lately. This is unfortunate. This is what my first thought that comes to me. as someone that's very empathetic to working class people, as I am myself, I'm I, I've always studied Stoicism, so it's very important to analyze and set reactionary feelings aside, process things for a while, and then speak rationally, right? And my rational thoughts to this is like, as a leftist, is to actually feel a lot of empathy and feel bad for the working class in Argentina because they got duped into electing this monster, this total clown. Um, that is really just going to sell them out for profit. He's going to get a big check. He's going to get huge profits. Trust me, he has a bag of investments that are going to go through the roof when some of his laws are approved. Um, when he deregulates companies, um, a lot of companies are going to get rich from it. But who's going to suffer? The Argentinian people are going to suffer because it's going to be environmentally catastrophic. Their drinking water isn't going to be clean. Their air isn't going to be clean. Their safety isn't going to be. Their safety regulations are going to drop, and that always affects the working class most, right? Now, this being considered a win for the working class, uh, I feel like it's just a move of the Overton window, right? Malay's put up these two policies to hugely move the Overton window to the right. So when he makes some concessions and it'll look like the working class won. But honestly, right now, uh, Malay won the presidency, so the working class didn't win. If they working class pulls back now in Argentina and considers this a win and a moment for a breather, they are highly mistaken. This is just the beginning. It's only the first 2 months of his presidency, and I think the Argentinian working class needs to highly organize and mobilize. I don't know exactly how much organizing they're doing down there. I do need to look into it. I look forward to learning more about how the working class left is mobilizing down there. But they need to keep adding pressure. They need to keep adding pressure because any of those laws in any way that Milei uh, moves or implements or any kind of deregulation is a win for them. Any kind of outsourcing of social programs or modifying social programs in Argentina is a win for the right, and you just can't let them. The working class needs to learn to move the Overton window further left, to be more demanding, and not to give up on their demands, because the further left they move, uh, the more politicians will see the middle left a little more reasonable, right? Um, that's not to say that I don't believe in Marxism or communism or socialism. I do. I'm a high supporter of those systems as a better system, not perfect systems, but systems that people can work upon and grow on and actually be productive and reasonable and create equity with. Uh, but I'm also not opposed to some middle left wins, right? And I think a huge win for the working class in Argentina right now would be uh, for the decree of necessity and urgency and for the omnibus law to be fully shredded, and for Malay to be to fully feel the pressure of the working class and resigned, honestly forced to resign and have elections. The Argentinian people, if they decide together collectively that they've made a mistake, and remove your president. I'm not against it. Um, I'm not a stickler for the rules, especially rules that are made by oligarchs, that are made by imperialists, rules that are made by elitists, rules that are made by the bourgeoisie, made uh, so that they can make servants of the working class. These are not justifiable rules, and these are not things that we should believe in. We should believe in better systems they actually create equity. So all these talks of democracy in Argentina, I don't even think they're legitimate. Like, let's be real, even the elections in America aren't legitimate. It's not democracy. The votes are highly manipulated. People are highly propagandized. Uh, there's just a lot. There's a lot we can talk about elections and how we're living in a simulation of democracy and not a real democracy. We are given the appearance that we have a choice, that we have a democratic vote, that we have freedom, but we really don't. It's just a simulation that allows them to control us more, with the threat that we might lose our democracy, like we actually really have one. So those are my thoughts on this. Um, and yeah, I just hope the Argentinian people keep fighting, and I hope they unite more, and they realize that they've made a big mistake electing this clown with a chainsaw. You can tell by his face, this is a person that speaks out of hate, out of anger, and this is the kind of anger that isn't anything productive. He's just a clever clown that's fooled a lot of people, just like Trump, just like Biden. Um, and people should not be fooled by these characters. Um, I think people need to take a step back and really think about what these people are talking about, what they're really offering, because most of the time they just play the blame game. They blame people, but they don't actually show solutions, right? When they talk about the issues, they say very vague things like "We're going to make America great again," right? But they don't really talk. They don't really get to the genesis of the issues, of what causes the issues. They don't get to the genesis of what causes poverty in the working class, what causes crime in the working class, what causes violence, confusion, low education levels, low health levels, right? They never get to the genesis of that, and they never get to how they're going to fix it. All they do is promise you a better economy, and that will fix everything. It doesn't. A better economy just means more wealth accumulation for the 1%, more wealth accumulation for the oligarchs and the elites. Uh, it doesn't mean more benefits for the working class. Um, I think one thing I've learned is that people that scream, people that give their messages all angrily, like if they're in power, are really just they're really just putting up an act, like in wrestling. They're not they're not real speakers. They're not serious about what they're saying, because when people really care about the working class, I think they speak with empathy and with love, and they actually tell you the truth. Uh, People that I will use for example that really know how to speak, that are know how to articulate greatly. Definitely not me, but people like Jill Stein, people like Claudia de la Cruz. If you hear them speak, they speak with a sternness, but with a lot of knowledge. They actually know what they're talking about. They pull up names, they pull up dates, they speak of the genesis of the issues, which means where the issues start, the core of the issues, and how they can be resolved. These are people that, uh, when they speak, if you appreciate being told the truth, you'll actually sit down and listen and study what they're saying. And when you just want quick answers, your eyes will glaze over. And I think as human beings, we have to learn to be less reactionary, and learn to be more attentive to what people are saying, uh, because it benefits us. Like I don't have any ill will against any human beings either. Like this Malay guy, like I even think he should be rehabilitated someday, right? Properly educated. But I honestly don't think he's a dumb guy. I think he's a very smart guy, and he's just manipulating people because that's the choice he's taken, because he wants to be a powerful person, and now he is a powerful person. So what he's going to do with that power really speaks as to what kind of person he's decided to be for the rest of his life, right? Um, and trust me, this is just what's happening in Argentina is just history repeating itself. Argentina, like many other southern countries in South America, have gone through many revolutions, or they've gone through many coups. They've gone through many nationalization of minerals, and then they've gone towards um, capitalist free markets rearrangements of these minerals, of these businesses, of these resources. And this is just another book in a chapter again of Argentina taking a few steps back instead of a few steps forward, because the people have been coerced or they've been manipulated into falling for this guy. But the pendulum swings back and forth, right? In a few years, we're going to see the fruits of his labor. The chickens are going to come home to roost, as they always do, and we're gonna be talking about this guy in a few years, perhaps the same way we're talking about Brazil and how Lula is now in power, right? So that's those are my thoughts for today. I'm keeping it short, down to an hour. Hopefully, we'll have more articles throughout the month. Let me see. Let me see if anything else pops up for today. No, still his weird looking face. What's up with his hair here? I mean, my hair is goofy, but this guy has extra goofy hair. I'm not going to get into fashion arguments with this guy. I personally like my look. I don't see how anyone could like this, like, wannabe the dollar store Wolverine look that he's going for. I don't know. I don't know. We need to stop electing monsters, people. We need to really sit down and start electing people that will fight for us and that will organize with us, so that we can give power back to the working class. Okay. Well, that's it for today. Everyone have a great weekend. Have a happy Sunday. If more articles pop up, maybe I'll start, like I said, I've mentioned this before, maybe I can try doing this Wednesdays and Sundays, or maybe move it to Mondays and Wednesday evenings. But for now, it's usually still Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern. Great. Everyone have a great day, and see you next week. 1 second. I don't want to finish this now because now I'm worried because my camera is gone. What's going on here? Test, 1, 2. At least my audio is good. I don't know what's going on with my camera, though. Let's see here. Well, no me today. Well, that's fine. You guys heard me, so I'm going to end it anyways. And everyone have a good day. Looks like my picture froze, but let's see if I can fix that here in real time before I end this. The show's over, guys. I'm just trying to fix my video here. Maybe this camera died. I don't know. Let's see. Just looks like I'm drinking my tea forever here. Well, there's no way to reboot this, so and my face isn't important anyways. You see me there drinking my tea. That's what I look like drinking tea. It looks goofy, but I'm gonna end the stream. Good day. Goodbye.